Today on Ag News Daily.
The reason why I wanted this was be able to make decisions in season and or learn about those trouble spots before the end of the season. I guess I'd say the yield monitors has always been, I would say, our biggest tool. But if you're only yielding, or if you only see the result at the end, you don't really know why.
Well, welcome back to another weekly edition here of the Ag News Daily Show. Delaney Howell and Michelle Stangler filling in here for Tanner as he is out in the fields. Michelle, getting harvest done.
Yeah, it's crazy how much progress is coming up as well.
It certainly is, and we'll get to that later here in the show. But we got to start weather first, as we've seen more hurricanes approaching Florida's coastline. Category 3 Hurricane Milton struck Florida late Wednesday into Thursday, following closely on the heels of Hurricane Helene, which devastated the regional losses the last 2 weeks. The area, especially on the West Coast, saw some tornado activity as well. Although it's still too early to fully assess the impact of Hurricane Milton on Florida's agriculture, local farmers are bracing for additional losses. Many orange groves were in the storm's path, and according to the Citrus Research and Development Foundation, they reported that the storm's slight shift southward actually worsened the conditions for the state's 3 major growing regions. Most of those farms are in central and southern Florida, and the largest citrus-producing area in the United States is in that area as well. The foundation also noted that the strong winds could exacerbate the spread of citrus greening, which is a fast-spreading bacterial infection that has been hurting Florida's citrus industry for many years. Additionally, sugarcane fields located near orange groves may have also been affected by the storm. And as we're still recovering here from the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, which of course hit just a few weeks ago, the storm caused significant agricultural damage, with farms losing crops, livestock, and critical infrastructure. Unfortunately, 225 lives were also lost, and many people still remain missing. While it's too early to provide an accurate estimate of total agricultural losses, the American Farm Bureau Federation reported that the poultry sector has been hit the hardest. Other heavily affected industries include pecans, berries, and vegetables, which are struggling now with disease and rot. The Farm Bureau is using data from the 2022 agriculture census and overlaying it with the power outages that we saw from September 28th to better assess the overall impact. But nearly 100,000 farms lay in Hurricane Helene's path, and those counties generate over $14.8 billion in crop and livestock production annually. So for more information on assistance programs available to affected farmers and ways you can help, take a look at our show notes for some links. As we turn our attention this week to Midwest weather, hot and dry is expected to continue in the forecast. A front moving through the Midwest this weekend could bring some showers to the Great Lakes region early next week, along with a brief period of cooler weather before those warm temperatures return. But all in all, most of the Corn Belt remaining hot and dry. The ongoing dryness is again going to affect water levels on the Mississippi River, which will impact barge traffic as we head into key harvest season. And although the river had a temporary boost from rains brought on by Hurricane Helene, levels are projected to drop again next week, potentially leading to restrictive conditions for transportation. The latest U.S. drought monitor shows much of the Midwest and other regions experiencing at least abnormally dry conditions, and those continue to worsen week over week, Michelle. But keeping those folks that are in Hurricane Milton and Helene's paths in our thoughts and prayers. And really enjoy seeing all of the posts on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram of people joining together and sending relief down to those areas.
Mm-hmm. And it's crazy just to keep updated with some people who are still recovering from Hurricane Helene. So, of course, we keep them in our thoughts. And then even in addition to weather, last night, some people here in Wisconsin, the Cross Nation, saw some northern lights. Here are some pictures that some people have submitted. So thanks for sharing those with us. But there's a lot of things happening here in weather, to say the least. But going on to crop progress conditions, 30% of the nation's corn crop has been harvested, up 9% from last week. 64% of the crop is still rated good to excellent across the 18 states, growing the majority of the nation's corn, according to the latest crop condition report, maintaining last week's percentage and higher than last year's 53% condition. 40% of the soybean crop has been harvested, up 21% from last week. 64% of the soybean crop is also rated good to excellence this week, maintaining the same value as last week, but up from last year's 51% rating at this time. There's a lot of grain carts in the field where I'm at. What does it look like over by you, Delaney?
Yeah, certainly a lot of folks getting in there and getting harvested. And we'll talk a little bit about the impact that that's having on the markets here later on in the show. But this week, the Farm Service Agency declared parts of Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana as primary natural disaster areas due to those drought conditions we just were talking about. Counties that qualify for federal assistance have experienced 8 or more consecutive weeks of little to no rainfall. In other USDA news, the agency announced a more than $64 million investment in projects aimed at supporting veterans, underserved communities, and beginning farmers and ranchers. The funding will help aspiring producers enter the agricultural industry and improve their skills and knowledge to sustain successful operations. And additionally, the USDA recently committed over $11 billion to support dairy businesses and producers through the Dairy Business Innovation Initiative Grant Program. And these initiatives are focused on helping small and mid-sized dairy businesses with the development, production, marketing, and distribution of dairy products.
Late last week, McDonald's filed a lawsuit accusing the 4 largest U.S. meat processors, Tyson, JBS, Cargill, and National Beef Packing Company, of conspiring to inflate beef prices. McDonald's claims that these 4 meat packers control about 80% of U.S. beef production, creating a near monopoly in which direct purchasers are forced to pay set by the processors. The 100-page lawsuit highlights how this dominance undermines competition, pointing out that antitrust laws are designed to prevent such market manipulation. The meat processors have denied any wrongdoing, as they have in previous cases where they faced similar lawsuits from U.S. consumers, cattle producers, and others.
Interesting to see 2 big players, or I guess 2 big industries, going up against each other. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that story for sure. Earlier this week, though, the White House hosted nearly 100 farmers from across the country to discuss issues affecting smaller farmers and ranchers. The event was called Farmers and Ranchers in Action, and it included the USDA's announcement of new measures to improve research access to seed germplasms and efforts to strengthen rules under the Packers and Stockyards Act. National Corn Grower Association President Kenneth Hartman Jr. told the Biden administration officials that farmers are facing more difficult economic times. However, he did emphasize that Congress and the administration could help by removing barriers to expanding markets for U.S. corn. During the event, Hartman also highlighted the importance of enabling producers to access tax credits, such as the Sustainable Aviation Fuel Tax Credits, which he said could not only help expand the ethanol market, which is of course a vital one for corn growers, but also help support the airline industry's efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, so a win-win for both industries. In contrast, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association criticized the event. Ethan Lane, NCBA's Vice President of Government Affairs, expressed frustration in a news release, noting that cattle producers have been dealing with significant challenges, including, of course, those 2 hurricanes within 2 weeks and months of devastating wildfires out in the West. Lane argued that instead of addressing these urgent issues, the administration hosted what he described as a pep rally for farmers. He also added that had the NCBA been invited, they would have focused on more immediate concerns such as natural disaster relief, regulatory overreach, and the USDA's approval of South American beef imports. A USDA spokesperson responded to an article in DTN expressing appreciation for the NCBA's attention to these issues and noted the department's ongoing efforts to listen to farmers and agricultural organizations. Michelle, what do you have up here next for our one of our final stories?
Well, something that I keep hearing, especially here in Wisconsin, about chickens. State agriculture officials have stepped in to process or cull nearly 2 million chickens across 3 states after Pure Prairie Poultry, a western Minnesota chicken company, abruptly closed following failed bankruptcy proceedings in late September. The company reported losses of approximately $38 million from November 2023 to the present. This closure comes less than 2 years after the company began operating on the site previously used by 4 other chicken processing companies that also failed to stay in business. Pure Prairie Poultry has received a USDA loan guarantee of around $39 million and a $7 billion grant for its Iowa plants. The birds, housed on local farms in Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin, were left stranded when the company ran out of money to continue feeding them or processing them for slaughter at its Iowa facility. In Iowa, the Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship invoked state law to take over ownership and care of about 1.3 million chickens on 14 farms. In Minnesota, more than 300,000 chickens were affected, while in Wisconsin, an unknown of chickens were made, with social media posts circulating inviting community members to collect the birds before they were culled. It was really interesting seeing these Facebook posts that from these growers and said, hey, come pick up your chickens starting as early today, going into tomorrow. So really unfortunate situation. Pure Prairie Poultry's chief financial officer, George Peichel, blamed the company's struggles in COVID-19 and related supply chain issues, which he said hampered the young business. Minnesota Agriculture Commissioner Tom Peterson clarified that the farmers were not at fault, stating, I want to be really clear that this is not a neglect case on the part of the farmers. The farmers are trying to do what's right for the birds before it becomes a neglected type situation. Pearson also mentioned that he met with the USDA earlier in the week, and the agency will be launching an investigation into the company's bankruptcy.
Might be a good time to stock up on some chicken before maybe prices start to inflate there from some of that. But Michelle, to wrap up our news this week on a funner and lighter note, this week from October 7th through the 12th is National 4-H Week with the theme Beyond Ready. Michelle, were you a 4-H member?
I was for many years, and I remember my time in the Little Lucky's 4-H club. I showed at the county fair, but then I also volunteered as well. What did your involvement look like, Delaney?
Yeah, I was a very active 4-H member. The Shooting Stars was our 4-H club name. I actually, fun fact, was elected president just as a 5th grader. It was kind of a joke, but I took on the challenge very seriously. But this year's theme reflects 4-H's mission to prepare youth for the future in a rapidly changing world by equipping them with essential skills while meeting them where they are today. Beyond Ready embodies opportunities for growth, discovery, and connection, helping youth develop into their true, authentic selves. 4-H is the largest youth development organization in the U.S. with over 6 million members and more than 90,000 clubs. It is a youth outreach program supported by land-grant universities, cooperative extension services, and the USDA. At Ag News Daily, we've all been part of the 4-H community, including Tanner. So we would love for you to share with us a 4-H memory that you've had. And I believe, Michelle, we'll be sharing a few 4-H memories on our social media channels as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Follow along. We'll share some fun pictures too, especially of Tanner, which he sent a few. So I'm excited to share some of those fun. He did share a memory that he served also as his 4-H club's president. We learned how to juggle many tasks at once. One of his most memorable experiences was showing livestock and specifically showing showmanship. I know when I was at my county fair, my parents actually met there over 30 years ago when my mom was helping as a dairy exhibitor with her family. So a lot of fun memories in the organization.
Well, it sounds like there's more weekly celebrations to continue.
Yeah, tomorrow is officially National Farmers Day on October 12th. This tradition dating back to the early 1800s honor hardworking farmers, ranchers, and agricultural workers who play a vital role in supplying food to the nation. Here at Ag News Daily, we hope you find a special way to celebrate, however that may look. Various organizations and companies are offering opportunities to join in the celebration Organic Valley is hosting an all-day live streaming event today on Friday, allowing viewers to experience farms from coast to coast. You can check that out on YouTube. It's a live stream engaged, and last year engaged with some classrooms too. So it's educating some people on agriculture as well. So just a lot of fun things that are happening for National Farmers Day.
Fantastic. Well, as we turn our attention to this week's interview, we're hearing from Intelinair, a company using high-resolution imagery to provide information to ag retailers and farmers. So let's get to that interview from the Farm Progress Show. As we think about digging into the conversation ahead of us today, I'd love to start with each of your backgrounds and maybe your connection to Intelinair and to set the stage for today. So, Kevin, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. So, Kevin Krieg, I'm originally from Northwest Iowa, where a family still farms there. My dad and brother are actually walking around the Farm Progress Show right now, and even my nephew, who's back farming with them too. So, they run corn, soybeans there, and so I grew up on the farm, went to college, started working at John Deere, and then after quite a few years, came over to Intelinair now, where I've been here for 3 years, helping leading up the business development side of that and really helping take AI to farmers.
My name is Matthew. I'm 34. I'm a sixth-generation farmer here in central Iowa. And I came back to the family farm shortly after college, and I'm just trying to figure out how I can improve my family's operation to get the most out of every acre. And I mean, the end goal is always to pass it on to the next generation. So my dad has left his mark on the operation already, and now I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to leave my legacy or leave my mark on the farm to make it better for my kids and our future. Yep.
So what do you have here that you're providing farmers?
Yeah, so I'll take that one. So what Intelinair has is a product called Ag MRI, and it's really divided into really two major feature sets. One is insights and one is analyze. It's all based off of remote imagery, computer vision, machine learning that takes that data in, combines it with machine data, weather data, soil data, and then we can generate out insights of what's happening on your fields during the growing season. And we do that at a real high resolution, so we can pick up emergence in the early season, weeds that are impacting the fields, weeds that maybe made it through this herbicide application as well. And then during the season, we start looking then more for crop stress, for nutrient deficiency. We have a nitrogen management solution as well to be able to help manage that. And then we also have a yield forecast for corn and soybeans that helps farmers get out ahead of what the crop is performing and how it's doing to be able to better market and better make decisions on what they can do to that crop to maximize the ROI.
And so does that system set up through, you mentioned artificial intelligence.
Correct.
Talk to us a little bit maybe about how the models were developed. And Matthew, I want to know from you as well, when you think about adopting technology, I think farmers in that 30 to maybe 50-year-old range are very excited about that type of technology. But as you look at the next generation, your father, for example, I'm curious to know how he is open or questions he has about using something like artificial intelligence to power some of these decisions made on your farm.
Well, as a farmer, technology is a huge part of, I would say, going forward or improving your operation into the future. The older generation knows that, but with every new piece of technology, there's another learning curve. There's another, whether it's auto steer, whether it's John Deere AutoPath, whether it's with this Ag MRI app. I think Dad has kind of really said, hey, Matthew, you need to maximize this. I'll be hands off. I want to do this, but I want you to be the one steering all the decisions, all the gathering the information and analyzing the information and seeing what the crops are looking like out in the field.
So Kevin, tell us a little bit more then about how the platform uses artificial intelligence to be able to make some of these impactful decisions.
Yes, I mean, how we use artificial intelligence in this case is really through that computer vision and machine learning, where we take in a lot of remote sense images from fields, and then we take that into training sense. So there's actually people that are looking at those images, determining what's going on with the field based on the signals that we're getting back through those images. And then they're training the computer system, which that's the machine learning part of it, to say if it sees that pattern or sees that color band reflected coming back from the imagery, it knows then that, hey, there's a plant there or there's not a plant there. Therefore, then that feeds into the emergence, for example, right? And then the color of the plants too help then determine things like nutrient deficiency and other crop stress issues. We even have thermal imaging, so then that can detect when the crop is essentially getting the temperature, and therefore early indication of a disease that's setting in. So that's how it's all based on being able to take those observations, have a human that knows what's going on with the fields and the crop, but then training the system to be able to look for that across millions of acres and then pass that information on to farmers like Matthew and others.
When you're looking at this season, what did you use that was really important when looking at this data?
Yeah, so in the past, last year and before, I've had satellite imaging for biomass, and it was very pixelated, kind of hard to, it says, I can see maybe difference between maybe a hybrid, two different hybrids, but that's about it. Not really any thing that you can actually act on. If it's, I guess, what I've always said about data is if it's good coming in, it can be good going out, but if it's garbage in, it's gonna, you're not gonna be able to use it. So the images have been excellent, that I've actually been able to see something on my phone, going out, be able to go right out to that spot in my field and see, yeah, I do have a nutrient deficiency. A couple of times I've been able to see that right on my phone. And when you farm several thousand acres, I wouldn't say I'm a extremely large farmer, but it's a lot more acres out and fields out there that I can actually cover in my time frame and still do my job as well. And getting these images from all my fields, I can go to the acre or the corner of the field that I know has a problem, and I don't have to essentially walk every single field to find those problems. So I'd say it's a lot more focused scouting is what this allows me to do. Be able to find those problems. And then the reason why I wanted this was be able to make decisions in season and or learn about those trouble spots before the end of the season. I guess I'd say the yield monitors has always been, I would say, our biggest tool. But if you're only yielding, or if you only see the result at the end, you don't really know why the corn isn't yielding as much. It could be a water issue. It could be a nutrient issue. It could be a standability issue. It could be any number of issues. And by having these images coming into my phone that I know are good going in and has high resolution, I can actually go out right away and try to learn about the crops, learn about why these images are coming back that this crop is stressed or there's a nutrient deficient problem.
And I think it sounds like, too, it really helps with creating some efficiencies. So you're not having to go scout every field. You're picking those areas that maybe are waving that red flag. Hey, we need some attention. So you're able to be a little more efficient with that. And looking at your bio, Matthew, you're a pretty diversified operation. You guys have corn, soybeans, cattle, and hogs. So Kevin, I'm curious, is Matthew kind of your ideal grower, or what type of growers do you find use AgMRI best?
Yeah, it's really, farmers like Matthew definitely are. There's ones that have the right mindset, too, that want to be able to make changes in season, learn things in season, right? One thing that really hit me was we had our engineering leader at one point say, basically, right, you can't put the crop back in the ground after you got it in the combine, right, or in the bin. And so AgMRI really helps people that want to get out ahead of that and make changes, either diagnose what happened this year in real time, or then even better yet, be able to take action on that in the season to help that crop before it shows up in the yield monitor. So it's really more of that farmer mindset of, hey, this is a tool, I want to be able to use it, and I'm willing to make changes from my planned activities on the field with this information.
Matthew, if you look at your crops this year, this summer, what were some of those themes that you had seen? I know that every field is different, but if you had to summarize what the conditions looked like for your crops, what were they?
Yeah, so we got a lot of rain early, so that created problems with nitrogen. We apply a lot of our nitrogen with anhydrous, so that's going on before. And we have some manure, and then we also have some fields that we just have all liquid that we apply at planting or after planting and then in season. So a lot of excess rainfall in the beginning of the season, and you're seeing the nitrogen spots or the lack of nitrogen or the wet spots show up a lot. We have several fields that flooded this year too, so I was able to get these images and really see, man, is it worth applying the fungicide now in the middle of the season? Is it worth putting, just knowing how to attack and that field with 15-20% crop that's essentially zero? So in replant decisions, I was able to look at population decisions. I really dialed down my soybean population from, I'd say 140,000 seeds per acre is kind of the norm. And I went down to 120, 100,000, or even 100,000 planted or seeds per acre, and had a lot of corn residue out there, so I had some emergence issues or some bare spots, and I was able to pinpoint those with this aerial imaging and then go out there and walk directly to the spot that had the problem, and I could analyze it and see, was this a planting issue? Was this maybe a compaction issue? Was this just excess residue that didn't get taken care of? I was able to analyze the different types of tillage models that I used, and I saw those in the planter, but then I saw how it came up later in the season as well too. So
does that system set up through, you mentioned artificial intelligence?
Correct.
Talk to us a little bit maybe about how the models were developed. And Matthew, I want to know from you as well, when you think about adopting technology, I think farmers in that 30 to maybe 50-year-old range are very excited about that type of technology.
Every year is a little bit different, and if we can learn more about that in season, like Kevin said, each we only have 1 year, or each year you only have so many years that you're growing crops, and you need to learn as much as you can from that one, so then when it repeats itself in the coming years, you are ready to make those decisions, because us as farmers have to make those decisions right away.
And you mentioned earlier, Matthew, good data in gives you clean data, clean information coming out, but I'm curious to understand how much of that data decisions that you're looking at, how much of that is based on your own background, experience, and knowledge, Kevin, versus how much are you guys stepping in at Intelinair to help farmers kind of sift through that data, understand what it's telling them, make those decisions?
Yeah, our role in this is really to be the unbiased reporter of what's happening on their fields and show them exactly what's going on, and not making the decisions of what to do on their fields. We leave that up to the farmer, their agronomist, whoever they're working with to do that. So, again, we're trying to just report out good, actionable information that then they can take and make their decisions based off of that.
And what does a typical subscription or package or, relationship look like with the average grower?
Yeah, so what it is it's a per acre charge that we have, and then it essentially gets you 10 to 12 captures throughout the season then on that field. So we try to get, early season all the way through, past the fungicide time in the season when you can really have an impact on the crop. So the idea is to be able to get those on a regular basis, so then you can make those decisions in real time and address the issues that are happening.
As you guys think about the future, it's probably hard to even comprehend that 10 years ago we would be at this point using artificial intelligence to help do some of these aerial imagery mapping, etc. As you look to the future, the next 5 to 10 years from now, what are some focuses that Intelinair has? And maybe Matthew, from your perspective, what are some areas that we still could use some additional support in the field?
It's hard to know what we are, where we're going. But I think as a farmer, looking back, when I was in high school or elementary school, farmers were debating auto steer and GPS guidance and maybe saying, oh, I don't know if this is the future or not. But I would say no farmers that would look back and say, oh, I don't think auto steer guidance is worth it. And I don't know how much AI will be guiding agriculture in the future, but I would say it'd be foolish not to at least learn about it, see what it can do. And so then when AI gets more capable, gets more tools, that I am ready to learn how to use it. And so I am ready for the future. And because, like it or not, probably my neighbors will be using it, the competitors will be using it, and I need to be using it and be ready to keep growing towards the future. I know that there's a huge labor shortage, and I know a lot of the equipment manufacturers have been making equipment more efficient. This is a way to make my operation more efficient and learning at the same time. Kevin talked a little bit about it, but when I was able to go up in an airplane to see the field, and I was able to see the nitrogen loss a little bit and see the yellowing in my field, but my notes from the field were, there were pictures on my cell phone, but it's really hard to quantify how much that field nitrogen was lost. And what I'm seeing from these aerial imaging and the AI tools, AI analyzing, it can actually quantify those numbers. It's not just, yes, there was nitrogen loss, or yes, this field had standability issues, or this field had emergence issues. They're actually putting a number on it, and they're trying to be unbiased.
Yep. Yeah, and I think great comments by Matthew there, but I think where we're also excited about with AI is that, there's so many variables into farming, into growing a crop, right? There's hundreds of things that impact that, right? We always think about the weather, nitrogen, the hybrid, right? The tillage practice. Those are the big macro things, but there's so many different things. And I think AI has that power to be able to sort through all of that and really help you understand and isolate, what really impacted your yield there, and where should you focus to be able to get better for the next year. So that's what we're excited about with AI, is to be able to sort through that mass amount of data and find those correlations and causations then of what's impacting yield.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both so much for joining us on the podcast. We certainly appreciate your time and insight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, Delaney, what are the markets doing this week?
Well, of course, they're paying attention to Hurricane Milton's path here and maybe a hurricane following that. But the other big market focus is the WASDE report. And as of first thing Friday morning, as we are recording this week's episode, markets are a little quiet ahead of the October WASDE report released on Friday. Today's report is not expected to see any surprises, as final yields won't really be accounted for until the January report. But while conditions remain hot and dry in the majority of the Corn Belt, yields are still estimating to be in line with trade expectations for corn, and soybean yields nationwide have been coming in a little bit lower than expected. This is certainly turning out to be an interesting year, though, as some growers I've talked to are just trying to get things done as quickly as possible because of the dryness and losing yield every day. Others are waiting to see and roll the dice if rain will be added back into the forecast. Heading into Friday's report, though, corn futures were up 2 cents in the overnight. Soybean futures are up about 4 cents, and wheat anywhere from 1 to 4 cents. So that's a quick look at this week's markets. I'm sure we'll have more to unpack next week after the WASDE report is released. But Michelle, I tell you what, we had a fast show today come together.
We did, and some fun content. You can check out the daily content wherever you're on social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and a few others. So go check us out on social media.
Fantastic. Well, Michelle, with that, should we let the people go?
Let's let the listeners go.